She was struck by lightning as a young woman, and it was the jolt she needed to live life to the fullest. And ironically, today's guest is so interesting that that's not even a topic we got into. So today you're going to meet Janine Bolon, a modern day Renaissance woman who's built an empire around her insatiable curiosity. She went from being an analytical biochemist to homeschooling mom to an author of 17 books with more than 93 online courses and a host of 7 different podcasts. Literally, she has done it all. So if you're ready to be inspired by someone who's turned their dreams into reality and helps others do the same with her own online university, then buckle up, because this episode is for you and Janine is about to share her electrifying story. Let's get into it. Hello, friend. I'm Kendra, and you've tuned into the Invisible to Invincible podcast, where passionately driven business owners share their journeys from hidden gems to industry leaders. Together, we'll uncover the secrets, mental shifts, and visibility and marketing strategies that turn these hidden gems into undeniable forces. So hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. Hello and welcome. Janine, I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Oh, we're having a good time already. So yes, I'm excited to be here. Let's roll.
So Janine, we've been talking and I just am so fascinated by your background. Can you share a little bit? Let's start with what you're doing today.
What I'm doing today is I run an online university. I have over 1,000 students, 112 online courses, and I run an open Friday coffee. So that's kind of what I'm doing today. Somebody who absolutely adores teaching, but I cannot stand to teach students who don't want to be there. So all the students that I educate and work with want to be there, have paid me, and we all get along just fine because I don't have to do grades and I do not have to deal with the administration.
Such language to my heart as someone who was both in the administration side of a university for 8 years and helping market universities for probably about 10 or 12 after that,
Mhm.
and who taught for 12 years because I used to teach marketing and social media at universities. Like, you just stripped away my least favorite things.
Exactly.
As a student, as a professor,
Mhm.
the grades, they want to be there.
I call it my online university because I teach whatever I want to teach. I have been teaching since I was 12 years old. I have always mentored or enjoyed being able to share the skill sets that I have. And so my degrees, actually, I'm an analytical biochemist and I worked for 15 years in the pharmaceutical industry. But the thing that I absolutely have a passion about is helping people with self development. So, how to write their story, how to start a business, solopreneur. I help bootstrapping solopreneurs. I also assist people who have debt. So, I created the 60/40 principle for people who are debt ridden. And then the last one is what I like to call my spiritual seekers, people who see themselves as spiritual but not religious, and they have metaphysical gifts and they think they're crazy because they can see things, hear things, and experience things other people around them don't. And I like to let them know, no, you're not crazy. You don't need an MRI. You are a psychic. And that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah. I had like 40 questions just from that, like 4 sentences. See, those of you tuning in can see why we started talking right away, because I read Janine's background, I read everything about her, checked out her website and her university, and I was like, okay, what are we talking?
I was looking
How
forward
does
to this too.
how does one go from pharmacy?
Pharmaceutical. I was, yes, I made drugs for a living, but don't worry, there's no Breaking Bad happening in my basement.
You know of, yes.
Everybody says that for me. Thank you.
Yep, yep. Pharmaceutical, to take us on your journey a little bit.
A little bit of the journey. Okay. Well, I was, as I said, an analytical biochemist. And then after that, I ended up becoming a adjunct professor at a local liberal arts college, and they didn't have much of a math or science program. So I became the math and science program. My only qualification was I knew it. I knew the material. And so I would teach science for non-majors. I would teach mathematics for non-majors, meaning I was teaching math and science to people who
Mm.
needed practical skill sets, not the more theoretical and no, what it took to become a Nobel laureate or any of those things.
As someone who interrupted my history and English and writing classes to go take astronomy for non-science majors, I thank you for that.
You're welcome
Thank you for
because
your service.
because one of the things that I love about cosmology is that everybody's a part of it. They just don't understand it. It's like what Sherlock Holmes says. You see, you observe, but you do not analyze what you're seeing or observing. Ergo, you don't understand or you have no context for what you see and observe. So I would always taken them outside of the classroom. They'd always be like field trip, and everybody starts singing along to the Magic School Bus theme. And it was really just because I'd take them outside and we would demonstrate outside in a very physical way what we were doing. And to me, that was the most joy I ever had, was being able to get outside of the four corners and be
Mhm.
able to get outside and show them science at its best, which is in the field. So that was a lot of fun. So I did that. And then after I had that experience, my husband at the time, we were moving quite a bit. And so after that, I got into homeschooling our four children, and I was in the state of California. And if you will remember, back in the turn of the century, they had decided that homeschooling was illegal, and they were trying to start a real trend in that. The president of the Board of Education made a name for himself, and we would ship us all these letters where I could wallpaper literally one of my children's rooms about how I was illegal and that they could search up my home because it was a school. And there was all kinds of stuff going on between the 1999 and 2004. And so, yeah, those are some of the quick trips of my
Wow.
experience with education. And I ended up getting my master's in education because of those rather threatening letters. And I thought, go ahead, take me to court, see how fast you lose.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
I was like, game on.
That's
this,
crazy.
this is California. And anyway, but we ended up moving to Ohio, where
Mhm,
the University of Ohio hired my husband at the time. And I
mhm.
like to call him my husband because he's not really my ex. He's still the father of my children. But
Yeah.
after 32 years of marriage, we went different ways. And that's when I decided to start an online university in 2015. And so that's where I am now.
And correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere in there was radio as well?
Radio was always my passion and my side hack.
Okay, yeah, of course.
It's how I reached out and stayed connected to things was through radio. Started in 1982 with a
Mhm.
spotlight on DHS, which was Donovan High School.
Okay.
And they liked my voice enough, and I had so much fun being there as an intern. I did not get paid, but my claim to fame was I actually got to do the 30-second, this is KDOFN, KOEFM, serving the recurrent river valley with information and entertainment. And I recorded that 5 different ways. And therefore, I was on part of the tracks. And you and I were talking earlier about how you would shove those cassettes into the machine and it would go across the air. And so that was the beginning of my radio career.
Yeah, the illustrious cassette tapes. And
They were smaller than 8 tracks, but bigger than,
mhm,
cassettes. And
mhm.
it was hard to describe them to people unless you knew. And you had racks and racks and
Yes.
racks of them. And you had to make sure you got the right ones. Now it's all automated. But we used to have the big reel to reels too, that would run for 12 hours.
Oh,
So
that's so funny. Yeah, we were talking before because I was telling Janine about my internship for one summer at a local radio station, and I had to file the cassette tracks and then until it was my turn to do traffic reports.
courtesy of Tom and John.
Exactly, until I was called up to do traffic reports, which really just consisted of me calling people to see what the traffic was outside their window.
There was all kinds of crazy stuff like that would happen, and people would be like, "I need to know what time it is," and they relied on
Mhm,
radio stations to be able to give them the top of the hour, and what they
mhm.
didn't realize is that I was sitting on one side of the glass calling the, Naval Observatory's atomic clock and hearing, "It is now 11:58. It is now 11:59." Waiting till it's midnight, "Go." "It is now at the top of the hour."
So crazy, it's so crazy, and I think that that speaks a lot to A lot of people really think they need to wait. Like, I'm taking a very far turn
Uh-huh.
here, but a
Yeah.
lot of people really think that they need to like wait till everything's perfect. Their story's perfect, their topic's perfect, their microphone and tech is perfect, the lighting's perfect, their life is perfect before they start showing up. And to hear that like these actual radio stations that broadcast to, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, depending on where you
Yes.
were at,
Yes.
like, literally ran by cassette tapes and calling the Naval Observatory.
Observatory's
Like,
atomic clock and
yes.
hearing that mechanical voice letting you
Yeah.
know that you had 15 seconds. And I remember counting down, you know, so that we could let our anchor know it was time to signal it because there were people who relied on that. I mean, if
Mhm.
if people understood how fragile the whole system was, and of course, military people know how fragile the whole system is, but that was how civilians ran a lot of things because it was the low cost bootstrapping method. And so,
Mhm.
anytime you think that you can't do something, I would like you to really ask yourself, is it just you getting in your own way, or do you have the skill set to do it? A lot of people like to use the excuse, well, I don't have the money. I'm like, well, what do you think you're going to be spending money on? And they're like,
Right.
well, you need a big microphone. I said, I have, I have published 17 books. Of those 17 books, I have had 8 of those books that became audiobooks. The headset you see is $40. And I recorded those audiobooks with this microphone. So I don't want to hear about how you need something expensive. You can bootstrap it very inexpensively and you still come off sounding like a pro because you have enough quality from that audio recording that they can do post production and clean it up as long as you don't have a lot of background noise. And a lot of people don't understand that. You don't need a $400 microphone.
No. And you don't need everything to be perfect in your business because it's not gonna be perfect.
Guaranteed.
And if it was, wouldn't it be so boring?
Well, perfection truly is the enemy of progress. And I know a lot of people have already heard about that. They've already experienced that. But I just want to remind folks that is a truism. I have watched groups, some of my favorite stories are wrapped up around people that didn't know they couldn't. So they did.
Right.
How many times have somebody said, hey, I can do that? And they just ran off and they did it, harebrained idea, and they ended up being successful. You
Yeah.
know, I don't
There's
know.
a danger in overthinking and thinking
Mhm.
yourself out of knowing what you can do.
Right. As long as you're not going to lose the mortgage payment. That's what I say to people. It's like, you have to remember these people were using their time or their skill sets. They were not risking their money. They were
Right.
just risking a little bit of, well, I don't want to be seen as a fool. And I always go, honey, I am the fool. I keep God laughing all the time. Why? Because I think I can do something and I fall flat on my face. And what's great is usually somebody who's a master of that will reach over, pick me up and go, would you like to know what you did wrong? And I'd be, yes, thank you, as I brush myself off. And they go,
Mhm.
do this, this, and this, and you will be successful. You know, so
Absolutely.
sometimes you need to be a bit of a fool just so that you attract people who are well meaning and who are masters of their craft.
Oh, that's so powerful. One of the things we were talking a little bit before we got on, not only about radio, we were talking about a lot of things, to be clear. We had a little pre-review. We were talking about storytelling. And one of the things that I hear a lot from people is that I don't have a good story. Or, when I was in education, a lot of times they would pick the most dire circumstances, right? I
Mhm.
was a single mom with 50 kids living in a car, and I managed to get myself to school, and now I'm a graduate, and I did it for my kids, and I did it for this, and I did it for that. Not everyone has that extreme life story. So sometimes there's the power gets lost because one, that's not always relatable, but two, that doesn't make your own story any less important or
E-
any less yours.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
And so I know you do a lot of work with people on their story. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about how you approach that?
The most important thing when you hear this, please realize the reason why it's used so frequently, dire situations, dire experiences. I'm not belittling those people. They came through some pretty horrendous stuff, but It's because they're focusing so much on the drama and trauma, you kind of lose track of their story. Now, if you kind of go back to what Kendra was saying, she remembers all these details, but she doesn't really remember, like, she didn't talk about the rest of the story. And I remember back in the day, dark ages, as far as some people are concerned, Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. He would always talk about the rest of the story because you that's what splashes on the main page, right?
Mhm.
You get the main page, something above the fold, and it's something incredible, right? But you never got the why.
Right.
You never got the meat. And so believe it or not, people really want the meat. They don't want what they can get on Facebook. They don't want what they can scroll through Instagram and get in a 5-second blip as they scroll by on some sort of graphic. They do that when they're relaxing at the end of the day and they don't want to think.
Mhm.
However, if they do want to think, if they really do want to improve their lives, and those are the people you're writing to, then your story does matter. And you have to remember something else. What is ordinary for you is extraordinary for somebody else. And I say that over and over and over. And for my students who are listening, I'm so sorry. You're probably sick of hearing it. You're like, oh my God, you're like my mother. Stop already. But it's like literally your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. Okay. So I live in Colorado. I look outside every day and I see Mount Meeker and I see Long's Peak. And these are my buddies. And I absolutely adore them because every day they look different. The mountains change every single day. The weather patterns over them is different every single day. People are like, oh, it must be so nice to live in California. And I go, well, where do you live? And this one person goes, Chicago. I'm like, oh my gosh, the home of the best pizza. And you guys are in competition with New Orleans as to who came up with jazz first. I'm like, there is so much for you to talk about, right? I
Mhm.
don't live in Chicago. I don't live anywhere near where jazz was king. You have so much to share with people. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm like, you also have the lake effect. You live below one of the supreme lakes in North America. Make a deal about that, right? So some people don't understand where they live. And they're like, but I just live in this little town in Oregon. This is what one of my students said. I said, oh, really? What kind of little town? Well, and the more she talked, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, you are literally 15 minutes from the beach? Well,
Mhm.
yeah, but it's not like a beach. It's made of rocks, like this black rock. I'm like, the more she talked, she has these huge trees of driftwood, and she and her 2 dogs will scurry around and hunt for crabs. I'm like, you are kidding me. You have an amazing story to
Mhm.
tell because those of
Mhm.
us who do not live on the coast, all I have are mountains. She goes, yeah, you've got mountains. I'm like, see, grass is greener on the other side.
You're reminding me of when I was living in San Diego, where I still am, and I did an outrigger canoe race in New Zealand, and
Oh,
people from 25 different countries. I mean, there was Team California and then the rest of Team USA, but there were teams from all over the world. And I found the team from Fiji and kept asking them where they vacation.
did they
Where
say Tonga?
Yeah, basically. Basically, they were, like, looking around New Zealand, they're like, "Here?" Best part is I was living in San Diego and was like, "Where do you vacation?"
Right.
Not even counting the fact that I've ended up in my outrigger canoe with my friends, like, in so many people's vacation photos as we come in and the sun setting and palm trees and things, like, "Where does Fiji vacation?"
This is important information we need
Mhm.
to know.
Yes.
But that's what I mean by your what you consider to be ordinary is someone
Mhm.
else's extraordinary. And one of the things that my student from Chicago did for the cover of his book is he found a manhole cover that had Chicago 1915 imprinted on this cast iron
Oh, that's pretty.
manhole cover. And I went, that is a thing of beauty. That is a piece of art. How many cities have that? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's amazing. To which other students started running around their towns trying to find their town's manhole
Like,
covers that has the city and the date. And it was amazing how many people came back with that. And then our photography student put those all together and created a book just for that class on that.
that's amazing.
And that was all the different pieces. So it's just one of those silly little things that happened, but yet had a huge impact on the people that were part of that project.
So what kind of books were they creating in that class?
The class is called The Right Habit, haha. And and what we talk about is how to have the discipline to do whatever creative project you have. And so we have photographers, we have aspiring authors, poets, all kinds. Some people even just make jewelry, but we're building out their catalog books for them.
Mhm.
But it all comes down to legacy. One of the things that is a passion for my heart is the fact that when I was taking history classes, we frequently talked about first documents or primary documents when it came to history. And one of the challenges that we have is that we're losing diaries. Like because of the digital age, the digital situations, we're losing diaries, journals, all those things that used to be able to go and look at somebody's handwriting on what was happening on April 12th, 1865. And some of you I know may say, who cares? Well, the people that were a part of their life cared. Like when they died, one of the common things was that people's diaries would be read because it would be things that they experienced, things that were important to them. You know, they would lock up their diaries so that nobody could read them. But after they were dead, no problem, I'm out, right? And so we write books of legacy. That's the focus, but not always does that become the target. Everybody finds their voice and then they decide what they want to do after that. But it starts off as legacy projects.
I think that's so powerful. And one of the reasons why I really appreciate that you do that is during in that like 1990, I'm aging myself quite a bit here, but 1999 dot-com bubble,
Yeah.
2003, I think, I was traveling nonstop. And I after 9/11, it was the first time I stayed in one place for more than for actually for 30 days. And it was 3 years. So it was, like, during that time, and I was losing track of family and friends because I was traveling for work every week, and that had always been my goal was to travel around and see the US, and what I ended up doing is I kept a blog so people would know where I was and what I was up to, and that, like, 1999 blog interface, and
I totally understand.
it was just for me and it was just for my friends, and, a couple of years later, I was afraid I was gonna lose it, and I was able to find a tool that helped me export it and actually print it out. So it turned it and I, like, took time to put pictures with it, which, are very low quality, but still. And so I still have those 2 books now as part of, like, a snapshot of that very specific time because 'cause we're talking maps and getting lost with MapQuest in the middle of New Jersey, and, it was just such a unique time, and I still have all of those memories for me and once again, for whomever else, someday might be interested in that snapshot. But just having that larger story is really powerful.
Mhm.
Other thing I love what that can do is help people remember the good and the bad, but also, you're still here, so the triumphs.
Mhm. Exactly. Yes. There's a lot to be learned, and we don't give ourselves enough credit. And it's fascinating to watch a student of mine go back and read a diary from 2 or 3 years previous, and they start reading, and they're like, "Wow, who wrote this? This is really good stuff."
It was you.
Yeah, but it's surprising. We don't give ourselves a lot of credit for what we do accomplish.
Absolutely. And are they actually writing, or are they dictating, or is it audio, or is it, like,
Yes, all the above.
all of the
We have
above?
all different kinds because some people only have a telephone. And so
Mhm.
we've talked to them about ways that they can get on Google Docs and they can do the talk to text options for that. Some people don't have a computer. And so they have to, they're like you, they're traveling a lot. So they're not going to have a laptop with them. I know nowadays some people are like, oh my gosh, you're kidding. I'm like, believe it or not, there are still large segments of this world that
Mhm.
those 28 satellites that we use do not operate in. And
Yeah.
so they have to find alternatives. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. And the community, is there a big community? Are they working together on that, encouraging each other, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
we have an online course that people can walk through, and what ends up happening is they usually just pop on to our we're part of the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. And a lot of times they'll just pop on and they just start talking about their writing, getting encouragement. They'll bring segments of their writing and have people write through it. And one of the people is my favorite story to tell. She met me, and we actually met in a coffee shop. And it was funny because she had her laptop with her. She had 7 books on that laptop, but had never had the courage to publish her books. And within 6 months of having other people read her work and talk about, I want the next book, she had incredible character. She had done all the studies. She was highly introverted, though.
Mhm.
And the idea that she had to go out and get a post office box so that she could use MailChimp, which was required back in the day, to be able to use MailChimp so that, she wasn't using her home address was terrifying to her, absolutely terrifying. So it took her 6 months. She now has published all 7 of those books, and she's won, I don't know how many science fiction competitions now, and is part of 15 compilation books. And she's done all of that just in 5 years.
That's amazing.
It really is. Yeah, she's amazing. But, it's all started with her running in to me with a laptop loaded with content.
How did you help her move from that point of fear of creating all that content, but being afraid to show it to anybody, to actually sharing it and putting it out in the world?
Well, it fits right along with your podcast. I mean, she
Mhm.
truly went from invisible to invincible,
Like
which is why I love that story for your podcast. I'm like, Kendra, we have so much to talk about. Um,
exactly.
but it took time, and it takes a little bit of confidence, and it can only come from within. You cannot ask somebody to move faster than they want to move. All you can do is show them that they're in a safe space. And so every fear that she would come up with, I would sit and listen to it. And then I'd say, what do you think the best option is for you to be able to move past this? How do you recommend that we do that? And then if she ever hit a I don't know, then I would ask the rest of the class, what do you guys suggest? So we made sure that we never offered her a solution until we had given her an opportunity to create the solution herself first.
Mhm.
That's how we got her.
I think that, yeah, they're so powerful, especially when you can help someone move from being afraid to show up and being
Mhm,
afraid to share and being afraid to use their voice in
mhm,
any format,
mhm,
because what you have is valuable and important.
mhm.
But helping someone believe that is not always easy.
No, and don't let anybody tell you, oh, everybody writes books nowadays. No, 1% of the population. Okay. So when people talk about, yeah, everybody has a book, I'm like, oh, where's yours? I always liked saying that. And people are like, geez, you're such a hard butt about that? And I'm like, well, yeah, because they're lying. They don't
Mhm.
know it. They're like, oh, everybody's got a book. I'm like, really? Where's yours? I didn't see it on Amazon. And I kind of get a little direct about it, but I'm of the age where I really don't give a rat butt anymore because I have seen enough that I'm like,
Mhm.
enough of this nonsense. I'm so tired of people segregating, tagging, dividing people. It's like,
Mhm.
let's all come together and help each other and let's see what we can do about that. And people are like, well, that's being very idealistic. And I say, well, it beats the alternative. I'd
Right.
rather be idealistic than anything else, and moving toward an ideal. And I like to really work on that whole progress, not perfection.
Mhm. No, absolutely, absolutely. I was stuck in perfection for so long, and part of it was, like, corporate life, right? Like, I would put ads, physical ads out, and if I had signed off, I had to sign off on every single one across the state of California. I would get, like, a stack, and I'd sign off on every single one, and if there was one error in the list of school programs they would offer, and the list sometimes had 50 names on it, I would get a red, like in red ink, people would correct it from, and I would get copies of it in my inbox in multiples if there was one little mistake or a period missing or something. Like the the power of needing to be perfect is so strong and with so many people that now when I talk to people, I like to ask who's the perfect judge, like who judges perfection, who decides what's perfect,
Mhm, mhm.
who is the arbiter of perfection. I'd like to meet them.
Well, and one of my favorite things to share with my students is when they hit that wall of fear of being perfect. I'm like, look, the people that find fault with your writing, like are circling the period that's not there. They're telling you you misspelled something. I had a book that I said I was struck by lightning, and we had put it as lightening, like lightning of a thing. Well, that wasn't me. That was my publisher that did that.
Right.
But of course, I'm the one that my name's on the book, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, and when people would come up to me like that, I know those weren't my people. That's what I tell authors all the time. Anybody who's going to correct you and be a grammar Nazi or whatever you want to call them, I always ask them, "Oh, were you in English literature?" Or, "Oh, did you teach English?" And for those 20% who say yes, I always go, "Thank you for understanding English in the way it's supposed to be done." And they always laugh and go, "Well, you're welcome. I couldn't help it. I'm a natural editor, right?" So that way we're all laughing about it. But for those
Mhm.
80% who are just being a pain in the derriere, not my people. I don't
Right.
worry about them. They have other things to do with their time.
That's a really, really important point.
Mhm.
There's so many things that people can say. I'm remembering I'm halfway through an MFA in creative writing that I'll never finish. It was one of those things that, like, I always knew I liked writing, and I was tired of just, like, my friends and parents and family saying that I was good, so I needed to prove it to myself that I could write. So I went into this program because I was working at university, so it was free, but I just remember in my first class, I wrote a story, and it was about, it was biographical, and the character's wallet was stolen. And she drove home, was trying to figure it out. And my criticism back from this one woman was like, I don't think it's legal to drive without a driver's license.
Not your person.
And that was the entire gist of her critique of my paper. Like, she's like, I stopped reading after that because it's not legal to drive without a driver's license.
Of course not. But what would you have done in that situation? It was very relatable. We have all driven without our driver's license on our person.
It was just such a funny thing because you're right. Like, it was so nice to have that, like, very clearly, like, "Oh, you're not my person, I can move on.
Yep.
Anything else you say to me, I'm just gonna shove aside because
That's
you are
right.
not my person."
No, no. Anytime you have somebody want you to change your character, that's another one we sometimes hear from the writers group. They'll say, "Oh, well, so and so said this needed to be a male character instead of a female character." And I'm like, "What do you think?" They're like, "Well, I really think it should be a female." I'm like, "Then you need to make that character female."
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
one of those things that be very careful who you accept critiques from. My favorite question is, "Oh, how many books have you published?" And I wait. And they're like, "Well, I haven't published any." "Oh, do you write?" They're like, "No." "Oh, you have a blog?" "No." And then all of a sudden, they get very uncomfortable because so basically you have no authority on this. And it's not me trying to one up them or anything,
No.
but it's just an opportunity to let them know, look, this is not Facebook. This is not LinkedIn where you get to hide in your anonymity and just fire off warning shots at me and take a pot shot at whatever I'm writing. This is you talking to another human being who has worked their butt off, gotten up every morning at 4 a.m., didn't stop until 6 a.m., where the first kid woke up and you needed to make breakfast, and then got on with working her 3 jobs. You know, those are the people you're talking to when you critique somebody's work. I just like to remind people of that.
No, that's really smart, and
Mhm.
it's a good reminder, and it's also a good reminder to, I'm gonna go back to this, like, remember who you're paying attention to and what criticism you're taking in, because 'cause I've seen so many people just stopped in their tracks by the negative comment or even sometimes the well-intentioned critique, because it becomes personal and it becomes like that rejection and everything else, when it's like, you need to stop and ask yourself first, to your point, do they have any, like, is this even someone I should be listening to?
Mhm.
And if it is, what are the follow-up questions I can ask to better understand it? It's so fascinating. One of the other, I'm just jumping around here. One of the other things that I think you do that's so interesting to me is the emphasis on community,
Mm.
and I can see the thread through everything you've talked about. Community and teaching and learning and creating those opportunities for people. But also, You have Friday mornings.
Open Friday coffee. Yes.
I mean, we all have Friday mornings, like, that's a thing we all have, but talk about open Friday coffee.
Open Friday coffee came out of a need. I had so many people that wanted to meet with me one on one, and I just frankly did not have time. And the more I was out and the more I was working with people like yourself on podcasting, broadcasts, I was on TV, radio, that sort of thing. The more I got out and was doing that, the more people wanted to communicate with me. And I could not give them one to one time, but I wanted to stay available. So I instituted what I used to do in college, which was I had open office hours. And so I picked what time would be really good for me. And I thought 9 a.m. on Mountain Time on Friday morning. I'm going to open up my Zoom room and I'm going to give an hour to anybody who wants to show up. And anybody who wants to show up can. They can show up multiple Fridays in a row. And there is a bit of decorum about it. I usually, because it is open office hours, my students get first dibs on time with me. And I always say, who here is one of my students? I usually know them. I can spot them pretty quickly. But they always get to ask questions first. But the big thing is you show up when you can and you leave when you have to. You don't have to stay on for the whole hour or anything like that. You can show up, raise your hand, and I will call on you. But usually I have students that have asked me questions. So there's a little bit of a slide deck, and I'm running through answers of one of those courses that I'm offering or something like that. So people get a little bit of a preview of how I teach, what I'm talking about, that kind of thing. But it's been a way for people who say, well, we want a pre-interview with you. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? I have been on radio. I have been on TV. No, I do not do pre-interviews. Come to Open Friday Coffee, see how I work a room of 28 people. Then we'll talk about whether or not I'm appropriate for your podcast. And I understand why they have that, but this was a way that I actually now bought back 11 hours of time a week. And so let me tell you something. That's why I started Open Friday Coffee. And now I have a group of people that every Friday they're on with me. There's about 18 of them. And we started doing 1 minute tech tips from my tech tip guy. And then I have a branding guy. And then I have a lady who's fabulous with keywords and SEO. And what they do is they come and they teach a little bit and they kind of get their feet wet and they've started opening up their own office hours and they're getting a little confidence. And so that's what's kind of happened with the community. And then they'll pop back and there are times where you'll see him. Hey, I've got a 1 minute tech tip for you, Janine. I'm like, go ahead, Matt, what's going on? And he'll tell us. And then he'll say, my information's in the chat, gotta go because he's at work.
Yeah.
He does that. And so that's what I mean by show up when you can, leave when you have to. And the biggest thing is keep making the world a better place because we're all servant leaders. At least the people I attract in my community happen to be those people that are trying to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time.
I love that. I love that so much. I was saying before that I keep talking to people just day to day, as well as on the podcast, who are creating those communities and who are hosting those events, whether it's big or small,
Mhm.
and who are giving their time to help others. And it's so important. And especially now I see so many people working on similar problems in their own little silo, in their own little place. So it's amazing that you've created this platform and this place where people can come and share what they know, get experience sharing what they know, because not everyone's been teaching for many, many years, and be able to build that confidence so they can do it themselves and keep passing that on. What a gift to be able to help pay forward.
Yep, exactly. Because I couldn't have become who I am if I didn't have really quality mentors. And that was before you paid somebody $20,000 a year to be a mentor. That was when you would actually walk up to somebody and say, I really like the life you have. I really enjoy seeing how you interact with people. I want to learn from you. Will you be my mentor? I mean, that's how you were doing it in the 80s and
Mhm.
90s. Now, you have the ability to just pay somebody $50,000 or $20,000 to be on a group call for a year to learn some sort of skill set or whatever. But that wasn't even a thing back then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's really powerful. And I think that's just so critical because it's something that a lot of people aren't able or in a position to take that
Hmm.
opportunity to pay all that extra,
Hmm.
but to be able to get that gift and being able to help pay it forward themselves.
Hmm.
There's such a power in that. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, look, And we're going to end on that note. Janine, I'm going to put your contact information in the notes and the show notes and everywhere I can. Do you want to also tell people where they can find you?
Honestly, the best and fastest and easiest way is just Open Friday Coffee. So if you would put the link of the 8 gates /
Mhm.
Open Friday Coffee, literally you will find me very, very quickly that way. If that's a little scary for you, then you're welcome to meet with me on LinkedIn. But if you go to LinkedIn, just realize you're going to talk to one of my team. I have a team of 15 people that help me with the social media post production. And Lynette will be chatting with you on LinkedIn. Same with Alignable and Facebook. You can go ahead and direct message me, but you will still get Lynette.
Friday coffee.
Yes.
You heard it here. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for tuning in, everybody. Remember, I'm Kendra from KendraLosee.com. And this is the Invisible to Invincible podcast, where we help you take back control of your time, your life, your business, and go from invisible to invincible in the best way for you. Till next time, bye.